Alright, welcome everybody to another week of Game Wisdom Live. This is for November 9th, 2017, and oh boy, this has been one of those weeks for game industry news. But of course, joining me as always, video game producer Robert Leach.
Hello.
Hey Rob, and if you'd like to give everyone the good news, you have a new job.
Yeah, I'm switching from my current job at B Spot, which is a gambling, no, it's a great name, gambling, mobile gambling company, to doing some AAA titles again. I'm working on what is currently called NBA E-League. You can look it up. It has all the press release stuff. NBA and Take-Two are partnering, and Visual Concepts, the makers of NBA 2K, they are starting an E-League. Whole crazy esports business going towards going with NBA 2K. So it's very exciting. Thanks, Chowd.
Nice. Hey, Chow, thanks for coming on. I'm sure El Gordo should be soon, although I heard that he is busy with Warframe this weekend, so we'll see if he can make it to the stream tonight.
Oh, I'm sure. By the way, I should talk to other Josh about this. He might be very aware of it, or anxious about it, or have some thoughts.
Yeah, I put the message in our Discord channel to see if Josh is around to see it, but about the live stream. But we'll see if he pops in. And we still need to get the other Josh, I guess, on at some point too for one of our chats. But it has definitely been one of those weeks for game news and all manner of craziness. Oh, El Gordo just showed up. Perfect. If you missed the announcement, El Gordo, Rob has a new job. And if you want to mention it again for El Gordo, feel free.
Sure. I'm working. Take-Two is now working on with the NBA on an E-League. So esports is coming to NBA 2K series, and that is a project I'm working on now.
And definitely congratulations on that, Rob.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love my current job, but at the same time, it's nice to get back into AAA. It's very cool.
Awesome. Now, as a bit of a possible announcement, I know we were talking about this before on Skype, but depending upon whether or not they'll allow you to do the podcast while you're at the office there, we may be moving the day for our Game Wisdom show, because we definitely don't want to lose Rob to the E-League. We need to have him back here as my co-host. So once Rob hears more about that, we'll let you know. So either things will continue business as usual, or we'll be moving things around to possibly the weekend. But once we get the official word, I'll be sure to let you guys know. So, and if it does go through, they're fine with it, then Rob will have a fancy new background for when he does the show on Thursday nights.
Or I'll just bring a whole bunch of clothes with me to just keep everything consistent.
Exactly. No one will ask any questions about why there's a bunch of clothes in the office. But getting back to the news at hand, there's only been a lot going on. First, I think I may be fighting a small cold. My throat's been a little scratchy these last few days. I don't know if it's the weather changing, all the talking, or I'm coming down with something. So I'm hoping things will...
Well, NBA 2K does have loot boxes, so...
Oh no. Rob's been corrupted already. It's happening. We're losing them as we're sitting here. But I'm hoping that this will clear up, or I may actually really need Rob to be my voice for the next stream. We'll see what happens. But in terms of other things that's been going on, I know last week I announced about doing game design consulting, and right now I'm preparing the document. Rob is helping me out with that, and we're pretty much almost done finalizing it. I created a new draft, and once Rob has some time, he's going to give it the once-over. And if it looks good, I'll be making an announcement video about doing game design advising services for the foreseeable future. I'm also going to be talking to a developer on Monday about possibly doing some work in that regard, but fingers crossed until then. In terms of other things that's been going on, I actually got a little bit more work done on my ebook. I'm now, I think, 14 listings out of the 20 done, so slowly but surely, as I find the time, I'll be able to get that going for everybody.
Very cool.
Let's see, but there's definitely been a lot to talk about in terms of games and big news this week. So, I guess we'll start with the games we've played. And oh my goodness, I got a lot on my plate. So I'll let you go first, Rob. Have you had a chance to play anything new?
I have. I mean, and by new, it's always going to be old because I'm always catching up. But I've started playing Endless Space. So
Hmm.
it's a new one to me. It's not the kind of genre I'm usually digging around in,
Hmm.
but it's like Space Civ or something like that, more or less. But it is. It's something I'm digging into, and I'm gonna come up with
Hmm.
some more opinions on it over the next couple of weeks.
Endless Space
Uh-oh.
sounds familiar. Is that a space simulator?
Kinda, sorta. It really is like Civ, but in space. Like
Oh, I think
it's
I
got
know.
that strategy thing. And yes, we are now officially loot boxes.
Yeah. Although I think
So we're gonna be part of
Roblox. That sounds like a
like an actual
Lego.
thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure I own that game.
I
Oh
wouldn't
wait,
doubt
I
it.
own Endless Legend, which I think comes
Oh,
from the same company.
because they have Endless Space 2. They have a
Hmm.
sequel.
Yeah, I'm sure my friend Brian Rubin. I think he played a lot of that from Space Game Junkie. But yeah, I'll be curious to hear what you think about that because for long time fans, I've never really been able to get into those grand strategy games. I mean, the only one I really had a chance to like dig into to some extent was Civilization. But
Hmm.
it's definitely a very interesting genre, and I know it's one that if you find the game you like, that's a good like 6 months to a year out of your life probably playing it and learning everything there is about it.
Yeah, when I was streaming it, it took half the stream to get through the tutorials. So you would love that.
Oh yeah. I just played. Speaking about long tutorials, I was playing Space Pirates and Zombies 2 on the stream last night. It took us an hour and 50 minutes, and we just barely. I think we're still in the tutorial. We haven't even unlocked like one of the
Oh
main
my God.
systems of the game yet. So I thought, no, we're not cutting the stream up because if we do that, this Let's Play will go on probably till like 2018 at this point.
Yeah.
But anything else that you've been playing, Rob?
No, that's I played a little bit more Dota, so I'm finally starting to get the hang of it. I finally won a match. I had 0 kills. I was killed 6 times, but I had something like 8 assists, and I hold it true because I'm only playing AI. That I had like 3 kills stolen from me by my AI cohort, so I'm very upset about that.
Aw. Good luck with learning Dota 2. That again, the MOBA genre is one that I try to keep away from whenever possible. That's just way too stressful for me.
Yeah, it's pretty stressful. They just came out with more characters. Both
Ugh.
Dota and League of Legends have introduced new characters.
El Gore just called you a filthy feeder. Although I think that would probably describe me as well if we ever play League of Legends at some point. Let's see. So, for days. So for me, it's definitely been a very varied week in terms of games played. So first off, for those of you who don't know, I've been doing speedruns of Cuphead, and I set a new world record for a category because no one else has done it yet, which is playing the game, being all the bosses on expert difficulty while completing all the run and gun stages. So it took me an hour and 20 minutes to beat the game like that. And then the other night, I did a 100% run, which is just being everything without using any glitches. And I came in at about 57 minutes to beat the game, which is 3 minutes behind the current world record.
Ooh.
And I think that may be my peak. I don't know how much more I can push it from there, but it's definitely been a hands-on learning experience in terms of like trying to understand speedrunning culture. Because I just did that presentation about in I think it'd be like 2 3 weeks ago, and I didn't start doing speedrunning until after that. So I certainly have a new appreciation for people who spend the time to learn these games.
Yeah.
At 80% Josh. What's the Josh? What's the Josh condition there, Algordo? While I'm waiting for that, besides of course playing Space Pirates and Zombies 2, I've been really enjoying Slay the Spire, which is a deck building turn-based roguelike. It's I believe coming out next week, and I think we said it's coming into early access, but I'm not sure. And really been enjoying that one. A Josh playing the game. Oh well, at least I don't have to worry about too many people beating my record there, unless other Josh decides to join speedrunning as well. But yeah, Slay the Spire has been a lot of fun, and it's one that it really has a solid foundation. You can really tell that about some of the best indie games, that even if the game's not done yet, you can feel that there's something special there. Um, I believe. Let me see. I know that it starts with two characters. I think they're going to have a third one when it comes out when it comes into early access, I should say. But really curious to see what they're going to do to expand it. It's definitely on the difficult side. I haven't even came close to being the game yet. But I'm hoping to see more of it and maybe score at least one win before the game comes out next week. I know last week we talked about the Diesel Punk game, Tower 57, which the embargo lifts on Monday. So I think we'll be doing a stream of that then. Let's see. Any other games? I shouldn't be saying that. There's so many I've been playing. I just played this game called Nimbatus, which I did a video about earlier. If you had a chance to look at that one. It's kind of like a drone. Like it's a game where you construct drones, and like you have full reign to build them any which way you want. It really has that basis for that emergent game design or emergent gameplay I was talking about earlier this week. And the game's in Kickstarter right now, I guess, to finish the funding. And last I checked, I believe they actually went over their goal. Let's see if I can look that up really quickly. But I didn't even know about the game until the developer sent me a press key about the other day. Because again, all the indie developers now must know me as this hotshot programmer / puzzle guy, but I suck at those games. So I'm not sure how they found me out about that.
It's just resharing and retweeting, probably.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so here it is. So they actually hit their goal. They went over. They were asking for $20,000. Right now they're at $26,000 with 25 days to go. So if Stray Fawn Studio is watching somehow, congratulations on the Kickstarter success.
Definitely.
Now, let me see. There's anything, at least on the PC wise, I have a few mobile games I want to talk about. Nimbatus, we did Slay the Spire, Space Pirates and Zombies. Oh, man. I just got another key. Oh, yeah. I know El Gordo asked me if I was going to play the game The Mummy Demastered, which is basically a game based on the Mummy movie from 2017, but has nothing in relation to that movie by Way Forward. So I finally got an email from Way Forward, so I gave them all my information, so fingers crossed that they'll give me a press key to look at. And I just got a very interesting game called Io a Rain Tale, which I believe is like a platformer / art game about trying to get water for like a starving village or something along those lines. Again, developers just send me emails. I'm like, well, all right, I'll check it out. So I'll be trying to look at that over the weekend and see what it does. Here it is. It looks like it's based on... yeah, it's a kind of like a take on trying to get water for communities, and it looks like Africa. So definitely very interesting game there. Water chip, maybe. And as Elgoro just said in chat, South Park Foam Destroyer came out. So I've been trying to find a good mobile game to play. So I've been playing this game called Gumballs and Dragons. Have you ever heard of that one, Rob?
I have not. There are too many mobile games. I've got 50 on my phone right now that I put the ones I like kind of in a folder and forget about them. So, yeah.
Yeah, this one seems to be one that a lot of my friends like. It's kind of, I forget if there's like an actual name for that genre, where you're clicking on tiles to reveal spaces in like a dungeon. And then sometimes there's an enemy, sometimes there's an event. And so far, it seems to be the best in terms of not being too annoying to play and actually allowing you to progress without spending money, which is, at least at this stage of the game. It certainly has overtaken that game Idle Heroes that I was playing last week. And then earlier today, I downloaded the South Park game because I was really curious to see what they were doing with that. And I'm liking what I'm seeing, but I am definitely seeing, that pay to annoy or, trying to get you to spend money aspects very quickly.
Yeah, all that stuff. it doesn't matter the theming. It doesn't matter how much money they put into the game. If it's free to play, it's gonna have a ridiculous amount of microtransactions they shove in your face all the time. And it's hard to say whether or not that's a good model because
Mm-hmm.
it's new and a lot of people are growing up with it, so they're going to be used to it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly different than what we grew up with, and so that makes it hard to wrap our heads around.
Yeah. And speaking about loot boxes and monetization, I didn't have to bring up the podcast I did yesterday, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, so with South Park, it plays very much like that Clash Royale, where you put characters on the board, they do their own thing, if they reach the enemy, they'll attack, and they're all based on various themes. So there's like a fantasy theme, sci-fi, and so on. And then the cards are broken down by class, and then there's of course common, rare, legendary, so on and so forth. And they're definitely, I think, going for that monetization aspect because at the end of each, when you win a map, you choose from lockers that determine what your rewards are. But of course, it's supposedly randomly generated, which I think that's kind of BS. But if you want to open up more lockers, you have to spend in-game premium currency to do that. And then every like so often in the story campaign, the game forces you to win PvP battles in order to keep playing. But of course, a PvP is going to match you with people of similar level and what cards you own. So it's going to get harder and harder for you to progress in PvP unless you spend money and get more booster packs and all that stuff. And of course, the cards can upgrade, but you need to get duplicates and all that other random doodads in order to do the job right. So it's definitely going. It looks like it is going to go that route of that paywall is going to show up pretty soon.
Yeah, the dreaded paywall. It's always hard to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Fun as well,
Yeah, and if you
as
miss,
Chad says. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yep, and yep, the PvP is a requirement in order to progress in the PvE. And you can bet that they're doing matchmaking there like that. Yeah, it comes, I think you're going to see it very early. I think it's in like the first set of chapters of the game that they're going to pop out like Butters is going to say you can't progress until you do a PvP match or something like that. Now, getting back to loot box and monetization, I had a really fascinating chat with game economist Ramid. I cannot pronounce his last name because I'm going to butcher it pretty badly. And he is a frequent poster on Gamma Sutra. And when it comes to loot boxes and monetization, he seems to be one of the most knowledgeable guys on the subject. And we had a pretty lengthy chat. We didn't even get to all the points we were talking about yesterday. The only reason we had to end was because he had to go pick up his child at the bus stop, and I didn't want to be responsible for him missing that. And I'm definitely going to look to have him on for a live cast. We need to schedule times, but we want to do one about loot box and pay to win design, because of course those are the major parts of it seems like for monetization these days.
Yeah, for sure. It is the modern way to make money in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I have not really interacted much with him, but I have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit on Gamma Sutra. Just a
Yep.
little bit.
Yeah, I know. He has been a poster on, I think, probably longer than I have, and we kind of met through the Gamma Sutra postings. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what people think about what he has to say, and we basically had like a short like snippet of what he's done over the last decade, and it was fascinating to hear what he's done in the monetization and MMO space in terms of exploring that market and such.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'd be interesting. I'm with El Gordo. It's eager to listen to that podcast. Along those lines, I can finally listen to a lot of those podcasts since my commute is going to be 50 miles each way. So that'll
no.
be fun. Yeah.
Good luck, and hopefully we don't get you stranded on the road again, like again
Oh my
that
God.
one December more, whatever,
Oh my
whenever
God.
that was.
That was awful.
hmm But yeah, that was definitely going to be a fascinating cast. It'll probably be going up in a few weeks, but I'm going to see about doing a live one with him, hopefully before that. But we'll have to wait and see. Now, in terms of news that's been happening, there has been a lot this week. As Ogordo mentioned a few minutes ago, Take-Two announced that they want microtransactions and that games as a service for all their future games. And I know Ubisoft made a post, I think it was a news piece on Gamma Sutra, saying that the digital purchases or digital revenue has overtaken the physical actual buying the game for one of their titles this year. Let me see if I can find. Oh, here's another bit of news that was just announced. EA bought Titanfall developer Respawn Entertainment for supposedly as much as $455 million. Whew. But of course, as anyone who's followed EA knows, it can be very scary when someone gets bought out by EA. And hello, Brandon. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, EA is interesting. I know the funny thing is, you say $450 million. In the mobile space, for the companies that have done really well, the Clash of Clans folks, they've been bought out twice for over $1 billion each time. And that's to say the first time they were bought out, they got it for 50% or 51% for like $1.5 billion. And then the second time that first company was merged with someone else, and they got another just crap ton of money. So there's an awful lot of money thrown around in some of these studios that you don't even pay attention to.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Unlike the big time like Blizzards and those kind of acquisitions.
Mm-hmm. I just found the news piece on Gamma Sutra that about Take-Two only wanting to release games with recurrent consumer spending hooks, and boy, that's not what we want to hear. I know Jim Sterling just did a video the other day about a mobile company that is actually taking pre-orders for their microtransactions. And they actually use a pitch saying it's like Pokemon Go but with guns. So just like listening to that was like a gut punch for me.
Yeah, that sounds very iffy. The pre-orders for microtransactions, just someone got really creative there. That's a mind blown kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Here it is. I just found the news piece. Let's see. Microtransactions brought in more revenue than just digital game sales for Ubisoft this year. So, oh goodness. So they earned $202.6 million in terms of microtransaction season passes and DLC for this fiscal year. Oh boy. So it's sounding more and more like we are going to be seeing more microtransactions and loot boxes in AAA games this year, or for 2018, I should say.
It's time to bring you guys all over to the PC market.
Well, wait, Rob, you can't say that anymore once you start your job. Next week,
you're
going to be saying loot boxes are great.
Loot boxes are amazing. I believe in loot boxes. It's a week from it's the week after Thanksgiving, the Monday following Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I would like to have maybe I can get some additional insight. Mm-hmm. I know you got Ramin coming on, and the guy has more knowledge than I could even comprehend. I have seen it in his writings, so that's going to be very interesting. I would like to see if there's any inside opinions or reasons that I can even would be able to talk about. But also the benefit I have is that in an esports league, in an E-League, there's unlikely to be a lot of microtransactions since there's NBA 2K18, and then there's the E-League, which is going to splice off. And that's going to be the professional build, which shouldn't have loot boxes, but you never know. You never know what happens.
Yeah. And again, even for the games that have loot boxes, like Injustice 2, when it comes to competitive play, they turn off all that extra features for the competitive players. Because I think the only game that actually tried to do that was Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and that game just flopped in the competitive space.
You know what we need to do is implement a loot box. When you open it, there's more loot boxes.
A loot box for a loot box. There we go.
Yes.
You should. Yes. There you go. You need to pitch that your very first week at 2K.
I'm going to patent it. I'm going to make $1 million.
Great. Call it the Raw Box. Or no, the Raw Box opens up into a Josh Box, or then opens up into a Raw Box. and just an endless parade of boxes.
Boxes. Um, to El Gordo's point about the year AAA crosses the line, isn't that every year?
Yeah.
I feel like that's every year.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Just like Elgar said earlier, rip Titanfall, because as like we know, EA is not exactly the best company for preserving these studios. Again, as Visceral Games went out earlier this year, Max I think is gone, or they're just a shell, of course, and who knows what's going to happen with Dice in the future. But yeah, every year they do something to push the envelope. But yeah, when it comes to these kinds of loot boxes and gotcha design, yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to get more and more prevalent. That was one of the things we talked about earlier with Ramin, that when a lot of these companies, they will look to see what's popular and then just try and use that for their game. Same thing we saw when Grand Theft Auto succeeded. And then, of course, when League of Legends and the MMO boom and crash. And now with loot boxes from the mobile space. And like this is one of those interesting points. I actually want to get your thoughts on this, Rob, because I was thinking about this when I was talking to Rami yesterday. That a lot of the pools in these mobile and free-to-play games are really just the affordances and good UI and design elements that we see traditional games use. Whether it's making interfaces clean and easy to follow. We mentioned, of course, how all the buy buttons are green, because green is the color of money, it's the color of go, and it always it's one of those things. I don't want to use the word like it's been perverted, but it kind of feels like things have been taken to the dark side, in a matter of speaking, when these developers are trying to implement these microtransactions and gotcha design.
Yeah, it has been, and I feel like I could be completely wrong about this. I feel like the company that we can all point our finger to in shake and shame is Zynga. I feel like they're the first company that really decided to run with that very basic premise of anything, whatever makes more money, we're going to push. And since then, it's just been a domino effect of company after company realizing that that's what's going on. And of course, they're all sniping Zynga employees this whole time. And yeah, no, it's just been that whole streak for a decade or more now. And yes, Agordo, yeah, all these, yes, the game that I'm going to be doing that in minor microtransactions, yes. Every year it's going to get more and more, and who knows, at one point we might be like, oh, well, turns out the latest Counter-Strike is completely free except for all the crap you have to buy, although it might be right now. I know Dota's like that, I know League of Legends is like that, and as you want to mention, the other game that's there now, but that it's all going to be free to play. It's going that direction, and that is going to be an interesting spot for people like us.
And it's one of those things that it's going to become harder and harder, I think, to find that value in these games when you're trying to purchase a $60 game on top of a season pass, on top of DLC and loot boxes. And I'm just wondering, as Elgardo and Chow was talking about earlier, like, at what point are things going to break, or will things break for the consumer when they just say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this anymore? Now,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. That's the big question, right? Are they going to get to a point where it's just super unpopular and they have to stop, or are they going to get to a point where you're no longer paying that $60 and it's all free? And what's driving the game are the people who are paying money, and that's where you have to wonder. You have to shrug and say, well, are they going to force people to pay little microtransactions to play the game? I mean, me personally, and I think a lot of the people watching are of the opinion that just let me pay for the game and I'll be happy. Right now, though, games are pushing each other, and in this, games are a service right now, whether or not they call themselves that and charge like that, but games are constantly coming out with upgrades, and year after year, it's almost expected now. It's being supported weekly and daily, and it's when people get add-ons that they have to pay for, it gets really frustrating. So, and yes, whale funding is exactly a good term, but at the same time, um, some games need to stop doing this so that other games don't feel like they have to keep up, or maybe some games just need to be like, you know what, I'm just going to be paid up front, and that's what we're sticking with. At some point, the market's going to decide, and we may not be the people making that decision. It could be the whales, exactly.
Yeah. And it, as we were talking about earlier, or as I was talking with Rami about yesterday, like for a lot of these games, it's not really you buying value. It's really more about you buying to be less annoyed by the game, be it through energy mechanics, having to get resources, and of course the ever popular loot boxes. And the thing about these systems, I think what a lot of people who are, I guess, quote unquote, who have drunk the Kool-Aid in a matter of speaking, fail to realize that you're not gaining progression by spending this money. You're just simply moving the numbers or moving the scale back and forth. Because if I get, like I was telling him about this, but in Idle Heroes, right now, I have a bunch of 6-star and 5-star heroes. So you would think, wow, you must be very high up. But I'm at the point now where in order to make progress, I need 7-star and 8-star characters, which need even more time or more resources. But if I get there, I'll need 9 stars eventually. And it's just creating an infinite money sink for these games because the game itself is not changing. What I'm doing 10 minutes in is the same as 100 hours. It's just, the numbers behind the scenes. And, yeah go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I disagree with you, El Gordo, on this because, like I had mentioned, Dota, League of Legends, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, those are very big studios coming out with that, and they're free. And the entire model right now, it only takes a couple of big games to start going for free and free to play. That will cause the domino effect that they will all have to follow. And you look at the mobile market, 95% of games are free. And to charge for a mobile game is almost like saying, well, I don't want to make money. But then again, doing free to play is almost like saying, I don't want to make money unless you've got millions of dollars worth of ad revenue. So that's the place I worry about it. I think the $60 thing is going to be a tipping point at some point, not necessarily because it's what the public says, but it's what competitors say. Like, you got Counter-Strike versus any number of war games. One of them decides to go free to play. Well, what's everyone going to do? They would rather not spend anything. They just bought a $600 console. Why spend more money on a game if you can help it?
And the real problem, though, the real risk is if your game is only going to be defined by its monetization or games as a service model, then we're going to run into that very similar issue as World of Warcraft. That if everyone is trying to copy the big dog, why would someone play your game when they can play this one? It's the same thing we saw with mobile space. When, Angry Birds blew up, everybody wanted to make the next Angry Birds. And then everybody wanted to make the next Farmville. And the next Clash of Clans. And the next whatever. Because as you said, Rob, once one developer does it and gets away with it and succeeds, everyone is watching that. Like, I would bet money that if there's not a problem with the whole Activision, loot boxes raining down from the sky thing in Call of Duty to make it a public spectacle, I would bet that other developers are going to make use of that in the future.
Yeah, and then Activision's going to sue them for using their patent.
So they'll just figure out another way it'll pop up from the ground, maybe, or they'll have like a little car that comes by and delivers it.
But I also want to comment on what El Gore is just saying, that there are games that are doing a very good job of it. And I think that is very important for fans like us to support. Like we'll say, you know what, we see it going this kind of direction. Let's support the games that do it right, and not pay any attention to the games that aren't doing it right. The ones that are pay to win and that kind of stuff. There are still companies trying to do that, and we need to hold them accountable. So we might not be able to control the entire way the industry is going, but we can certainly affect it.
Yep, and I was like, Elgoro was saying earlier that he got some people, insulting him for insulting by defending the model. I've seen some big name YouTubers like were fine with loot boxes in like Shadows of Shadows of War. Battlefront 2 was fine, and yeah, there are people who feel like this is a great thing. But again, like it just isn't, because it goes back to the idea of like an ethical monetization, or as Allure was mentioning with Path of Exile, a game where you can spend money, but the game doesn't, shove it down your throat, forcing you to do it, or doing very little tricks and tactics to try and, motivate you to spend that money either. Because I think that's one of the big points. The games that do this right, they never flat out come out and say, you must spend $15 to progress. No, they do all their little things like, hey, there's a special sale. Instead of getting this for $55, you can get it for $5.99. And the next time, maybe you'll have to spend $10.99, and so on.
Yeah. And that last point there, it's not being forced, you can choose not to. That is kind of Apple's model. You cannot make a game for Apple where if it's free to play, that if there's item A and you sell it for money, you have to be able to get it by free play as well. So you're right about the regulation part. That does have to be a piece, but places like Sony and Microsoft can also follow that regulatory model if they choose to. Yeah. Which might segue you into that next bit of information, I think.
Yep. And Allure just made that really good point. You can catch more flies with sugar, and that's one of the things I was talking with Armin about. I know we've mentioned this many times over, that the games that keep us hooked are good games that don't, force it down our throats, that don't make the game worse to play. Because that, I think, is the big killer for me. That you can tell when these games are designed intentionally to push you down microtransactions. Saying that, oh, it's going to take 5 hours to do something, or you spend so-and-so to get it done now. Or you have the energy mechanics. Or my phone over there just keeps buzzing, telling me, open up a loot box. It's time to do PvP. It's time to do so-and-so.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very annoying. Your phone just constantly ticking at your brain saying, "Oh, come back, do this thing." It is so annoying. I turn off all those notifications.
Yeah, I'm doing that
so annoying.
More and more now. But yeah, and this is what I was talking to Armin about, something that we know when it comes to game development, that you don't annoy someone if you want them to keep playing your game. If your game is bothering me 10 minutes in, why should I stick around for 10 hours of gameplay? Because I have quit many video games that in the first 20 to 30 minutes start annoying me. I just did that last night with a indie game that was sent to me that I played for 5-10 minutes. I'm like, no, I don't want to play this game anymore. And that was the end of that tale.
Yeah, it's a primary, I think, and when you do your game design advising, you should basically just say, you know what you should do? Not annoy your players.
Yeah.
101.
Just do that. It's very simple. But let me check our time, because it feels like we only talked for 30 minutes. I think we've gone past 40 minutes in.
Jeez.
And there's still a lot more to get to this week. So, I guess we got more bad news to report, sadly, as Runic Games was closed. I think it was over the weekend by their parent company. I believe was the report that the parent company folded and Runic was kind of caught in the crossfire.
I thought someone took them over, and yeah, they were caught. Because I mean, really, when it comes down to it, they have 3 games, and 2 of them, one of them is a sequel of the other, and it's still old, and their newest one is nothing to do with either of them. So I don't know. Maybe it was just kind of in the cards for them, since they really didn't have a massive library, or didn't look like they're even trying to get one. But it is sad, since I am a regular player of Torchlight 2. And I actually tried logging into Runic this week and was disappointed to find that I could not. It didn't accept my password. I'm hoping that's just a bug. I know they say they have an announcement coming for Torchlight 2. We'll see what that is. At least when I went to the website, that's what they said.
Yeah, and it's never good to hear when these studios go under like that. And yeah, Hob was one of those very weird games, and it's I think it leads into that very challenging nature when it comes to indie development or any studio development. Do you become known for just one game or one genre, or do you try to experiment even if you don't fully understand those new genres? Like, the only other developer I can think of that's done a really good job would be something like Clay Entertainment, which each one of their games being completely different, but still a solid experience. And that's a very interesting point there, Olgoro, that the game felt unfinished, so they could have known about it beforehand. They just wanted to get the game out fast. Now, of course, unless a news piece breaks about that or someone at the company decides to talk, we may never know the full story there.
Well, generally, this kind of thing does take a long time, especially if there's a takeover involved. That
Hmm.
stuff can take a year.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right. I mean, that's a very good theory. It that it wasn't. Yeah, it was just unfinished, and they just tried to throw it out there as fast as they could.
Hmm. And we did notice like some very weird things. Like, it never felt like the whole design was fully done. And I know for those who watch my entire play of it, like the ending just like happened. Like, it didn't feel like the game was building towards an ending, and then it just happened. And we're like, wait, that's it? The game's done? And you never want to feel that way about a game where it just sort of ends, and you're like, okay, I guess that's it. I guess we're done playing.
Well, I think one of the main issues with switching genres in the middle is that you work so hard on an engine. If you're making an engine from scratch, that's a lot of time and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of programming effort, and so you have like this RPG that's working a very specific way. You have
Mm-hmm.
this all these levels are procedurally generated, and that's not easy to do at that level of
Mm-hmm.
graphics. And then they switch it up, and these programmers all have to learn something new, and the designers all have to think a different way, which
Mm-hmm.
may not be as hard as a programmer have to make a
Mm-hmm.
new engine, having to make. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. But there are many reasons why it's hard to make that transition,
Mm-hmm.
um, and why usually if you're going to do that, you might want to have a another team working on Project B, while
Mm-hmm.
Project A and Engine A is still um, worked on and supported by another team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, Rob, like, Runic hasn't had that many big name hits. Again, there are studio technically three games, two of which are the exact same genre, and unfortunately, like, that's one of the challenges of trying to keep these studios sustainable. Now, of course, if you have one game that just is, game of the year, everyone buys it, that one game can sustain you for a while. But it always comes down to what's the next game that's going to keep your doors open.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this before. There's a guy I used to talk to, and I wish I could think of his name. He's a professor of game design, and he said one game does not a company make. So
I think
I
I
find a
said
lot of
that
truth
too.
in that. Yeah, possibly. But yeah, this guy said this a while ago, and that always rang in my head. It's like, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. You have a game, and that
Hmm.
game can be successful, and you don't necessarily have a company. You're making a lot of money, but unless you have people working towards something else, then yeah, what are you doing? Of course, you can have a game that is constantly evolving and you're constantly putting out content for it. That's a slightly different story. Modern times allows for that. And I talked to this guy 10 years ago or more.
Hmm.
So it's becoming more and more possible to make one game, but certainly not one project.
Hmm. Like, I was looking at the game Raid World War II, which was supposed to be like a game from like former people of Overkill who made Payday 2, and the game was just blasted out of the gates by just about everybody. And it's looking like we may have another Evolve situation on our hands, where developers trying to, right a sinking ship, but I don't know if it's going to happen in time. But that is always that risk when it comes to game development. That for a lot of these studios, one game failure is a studio closer. Because if your big name project completely fails, that you just spent, who knows, 2 to 5 years working on it, what else do you have that's bringing in the money?
Yeah. Yeah. Studios are very expensive. good programmers are very expensive. So got to keep the doors open.
Mm-hmm. And going back to what we were saying earlier with games as a service, it also becomes a lot more challenging in terms of continued investment. Because it doesn't matter if your game does really well out of the gates, if you're expecting 1 to 3 years of post release support on top of that purchase.
Yeah. And there's nothing that's more disappointing to a fan than a game who's supposed to be, or a company that's supposed to be supporting a game, and they go out of business or don't have enough money to continue that support. Well,
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon they're not going to have enough money to stay open because people are going to just get angry at them. Uh, Forgetting about the game you're supposed to support is a huge cardinal sin these days. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really tough line
Mm-hmm.
to follow.
Yep, definitely. Now, in terms of even and of course, for anyone from Runic Games watching, it's definitely the best of luck. Hope everyone there can land on their feet. I
Yeah.
know Travis Baldry. I know he and someone else went to do their own game company, and they did the game, I think, Rebel Galaxy. I want to say from last year that I enjoyed. So I'm curious to see what they're doing next, especially after what's happening with Runic.
Yeah, and when a studio does close, I know we spoke about this a little bit. There's a yeah, it's just that there are a lot of talented people, and they are going to find a place to land. Usually, that's the case because it's they're proven success and they have a really good resume just for having a
Mm-hmm.
couple of very big successful titles. They might not be able to go into the genre they want necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. They might have to stay in RPGs or something like that. But hey, there's plenty of like, Path of Exile doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I mean, certainly it will soon, but
Mm-hmm.
games like that are it's a popular genre. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be around.
Yep. Now, I guess moving on from that, there's even more news this week to talk about. So this is something that I sent to other Josh, but it was very interesting to me, and that is StarCraft 2 is going free to play, or the base game is going free to play. Anyone who owns it, I believe, gets the second expansion for free. Of course, I own two out of the three, so I'm not. So the one that I don't have is not the free one. But Blizzard is doing this as a attempt to, I guess, reignite StarCraft 2 in the competitive scene. And I don't know about that. Like, do you think StarCraft 2 has viability, or do you think like its time has passed?
It's still a competitive sport. I mean, it's not number one. It's probably not even in the top five anymore. But like, it's still a competitive sport, and with the relative failure of Heroes of the Storm, I mean, as an esport, Heroes of the Storm is not doing well. Their current, I mean, Hearthstone is the big name that they have, so maybe they're trying to capture some land back with Star Control, that IP. And certainly Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm are free right now, so there's precedent for StarCraft going free in the
Mm-hmm.
esports area of things. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I know it's a hugely popular game, and I know there's going to be a lot of really number two, Heroes of the Storm. That's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Because League of Legends and Dota have, or are you talking about StarCraft? You're talking about StarCraft, aren't you? That makes a little more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see the strategy with that. And I'm just waiting. I've been waiting. Oh wait, let's see. I'm
Yes,
sure.
damn this delay, child.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, there we
StarCraft
go.
2. There you go.
StarCraft 2. Yeah, that makes way more
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
just really curious to see. Like we were talking about this earlier with this move towards free to play games as a service. I'm just wondering at what point will that shoe drop? Like, for instance, World of Warcraft. I'm sure at this point World of Warcraft has made all the money in the world times 10, but it's always that question of can you get more by like I guess this goes back again to the barrier of entry. Like if you can remove that barrier of entry, how much will it help these games, especially these older titles that have these existing fan bases? Because at this point, I would assume that everyone who is going to buy StarCraft 2 has already bought it. Like I can't see that game earning more in terms of retail numbers. So this seems like a pretty good strategy again to get the game back in the public eye, and of course try to get those people, get new and old fans to keep that community going.
yeah, for sure. I know that they put a reskin on it not too long ago. Um, And while getting back to their roots, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft is one of those where, I mean, you put so much time into it as a
Mm-hmm.
fan, chances are you're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. It's not like it's
Mm-hmm.
just a game that you play over and over again. It's a community, it's a home almost for a lot of people. Still
Mm-hmm.
stories of people getting married on there, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's yeah, it's its own thing. StarCraft 2 is running out of steam, but it's
Mm-hmm.
certainly still a massive yeah, in Korea it's like a huge competitive
Mm-hmm.
esport. And I'm sure because Korea is also moving towards the big money with Dota and League of Legends,
Mm-hmm.
that they're just trying to grab that space back, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I know, speaking about online games, Gwen got another update. I think it was this past week. I haven't looked at the game in a few months. If people want to see me play more Gwen, I've definitely let me know. But it's always, like I said, I've always had trouble getting into competitive games like that. Like it just gets, I think, too routine for me to play. Like it's why I prefer like single player titles, where it's more about me figuring out the game and mastering it, rather than just playing the same match or the same kind of match again and again and again. Until I'm the top player in the world, which I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's how I grew up. I've always liked the solo
Mm-hmm.
experience, and then when you throw me into this competitive arena with the well-known, very abrasive opposing players. Like that's the kind of thing I do not like. I don't like my experience to be ruined.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer to just stay in the controlled zone of the stuff that I know. Occasionally playing with friends, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'll be definitely curious to see how this does for Blizzard. I know Destiny 2 is out on the PC, right? That was eventually. Didn't that come out like just like a few weeks ago?
I think so. I'd have to double check. I'm sure Chowder El Gordo know.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Blizzard's strategy is moving forward with these games, because as we said before, Blizzard has definitely been one of those studios that always keeps an eye out on what's the big thing and figuring out how to integrate that into their experience. I know, of course, Overwatch is still doing pretty well. Oh yeah, you're right. There was a whole fiasco with them banning
Oh,
anyone who used Discord for chatting instead
right.
of the in.
We talked about that even.
Yeah. Oh, and for those of you who aren't on our Discord, Josh gave us both a reprimand last week because neither of us were following Call of Duty. Let's see it. Player base bleeding out. Of course, more DLC coming. Now, let me check our time because I'm sure we're nearing an hour. Yeah, we're about there. And I think we'll probably get going after this point unless there's any other big chats coming up because I think my voice is starting to die on me. But this is one thing that I thought was very interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this, Rob. And that has to do with a recent ruling by publishers wanting mandated ESRB ratings for physical indie games. This was a news piece I posted about on our Discord channel earlier. And the idea is that for any indie games as we know have always been unrated, but there are now Sony is requiring a mandate that anyone, if you're trying to publish an indie game or get a physical release for an indie game on Sony, you are required to submit that game to the ESRB, get a rating. Of course, you have to pay the ESRB for that rating, and it's got a lot of people wondering or think that it's going to hurt like smaller indie studios who may not have that extra money lying around for it. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
It does. It seems like someone shooting themselves in the foot. If you look at like film now, certainly most theaters aren't going to support an unrated movie, but there are unrated films that have outlets for people to see. In this case too, you're going to want that because
Mm-hmm.
it's a huge bottleneck, not only in terms of cost but in terms of time. Like you have a finished game, you need to get it reviewed all of a sudden. Like one, you have to get it reviewed
Mm-hmm.
by Sony. Two, you have to get it reviewed by the ESRB,
Mm-hmm.
and three, you have to pay both of them.
Oh yeah.
So it's just a lot of money and a lot of time, and that both of those add up to you not making anything off of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we said, for a lot of these smaller studios, they probably don't have the funding to get those download codes in those boxes.
Yeah.
But it also raises some concerns about will they start mandating that for indie digital releases as well? Because obviously, like they were saying, I think someone posted about this on Gamma Sutra that like previously you would just like submit your game free and then like tell Sony, oh, my game is rated teen or E12. Or I forget. I don't know all the ESRB ratings all the top of my head, but then they would just put that on like the game box or put it on the store page. But they are going to say that you must actually get this verified by the ESRB. That could become very troublesome for some indie developers.
It could, but I don't see anyone like, say, a Steam doing that. And I'm sure Nintendo, and although I would assume Nintendo would have been in the first, but I'm sure Microsoft and Nintendo will be watching to see what happens. But yeah, I don't ever see something like Steam doing that. That would be
No.
ridiculous for them. Besides which, they don't seem to care as long as they're making like just truckloads of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I agree. I don't expect the
Yeah.
indie game scene on the PC to be doing that, and that's always been the very interesting part about that because the indie development has always been very unregulated. So you can make whatever the heck you want in the indie space, and it will be very interesting to see how indie and corporate kind of meet in the future.
Well, certainly that's kind of how indies has gone. Any indie that's successful goes through that growing pain of suddenly you're
Mm-hmm.
corporate. Like it's if you make $1 million, suddenly you are a success and have to deal with that success.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly $1 million for a solo developer can go a ways, but it's not infinite. But if you do have a runaway success, you have to make that decision. Am I going to make this into a company, or am I going to still try and make these small games all by myself?
Mm-hmm.
The rise of erotic games on Steam, exactly. That's its own weird
Mm-hmm.
little business. I mean, it's such a strange thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have those kinds of books out there that are pretty standard in every bookstore. So, I mean, games, it's that same thing, but in a store like Steam, it's like they're all mashed together. It's hard to discern one from the other.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about those games, for those of you watching, I still need more games for the games of ill repute analysis. That spreadsheet is very thin at the moment. So if you would like to suggest a controversial game that meets my guidelines, please check out the link. It's on the Patreon site. And if you need, I can of course, make another little video about it. But I figure next week I'm going to send over to Patreon, let the VIPs decide what game to take a look at going forward. But yeah, definitely take a look at that. I know Laura already listed some of the games we talked about last night. But yeah, anyone else, feel free to leave some suggestions.
I am gonna have to try and get some in there. I just feel like that's a very cool topic.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see what you suggest, Rob. I'm sure it will be very interesting.
You make it sound like that's the only games I play.
And they have to have loot boxes too.
Get that loot boxes.
But getting back to the topic, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about. Yeah, it should be on there on YouTube. Yeah. Getting back to the topic with the ESRB, like I've always had trouble seeing their relevance in today's market, especially with independent games. But I know they have been a major fixture since their development or their creation in the 90s. I guess I'm just wondering, do you think we'll ever hit a point where we won't need the ESRB, or do you think they will, reasonably be around, as a
I
part?
mean, if you look at the MPAA, it's not going anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the ESRB it's going to be the same way, and I do feel like there's a place for it. I think that it's as people get more and more intelligent about games, it may be less so. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was there for parents who didn't know anything about games to at least at a glance be able to tell something like, well, maybe my kid will like this, or should I buy that for my kid, or whatever. It's that first little thing that a parent can use to buy a game without knowing anything about games. So I don't see it going away. I do see a use for it, but there is a line that impacts the entire
Mm-hmm.
industry, and like the indie industry, for example, there is a line there. Certainly, people are going to try to get around the ESRB thing by claiming that they're indie when they're actually not, which is talk we've already had.
Oh
Um,
yes.
That's one of my favorite things to just complain about is indies that aren't really indies.
Yeah, I'm sure we could spend another hour talking about that one for
Yeah.
sure. Let me see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to bring up. I guess for you, Rob, are there any news pieces that caught your eye this week?
Honestly, the Runic one was the big one for me. My job was the other big one for me, and the stuff you put up there is always something I like pondering on. But when I found out about Runic, I cried my silent tear and um, kind of left for that. But becoming having to dive back into the console space, I'm sure I'll be paying a lot more attention to that.
Cool. Oh yeah, here's something I mentioned on Discord. I guess here's a little bit, I guess a little game design topic here for everyone. What do you think about games built around pausable real time? It's one of those genres that I've never really been able to get into all that well. Games where you're able to, where just basically where it's a real time game, but they just require you to pause in order to make a lot of commands or tactical decisions.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think. Could you give me an example? The only thing that's coming to mind now is Beautiful Joe for some reason, um, but I know that's not what you're talking about.
Something like the game Door Kickers, even something like older games like Jagged Alliance, Fallout Tactics, Arcanum would be an example. They had like a real-time turn-based mode. I got a press key for this game called Strain Tactics, which follows in that same kind of line where it's real time, but you have to stop when you're trying to like issue specific orders to everyone on the field.
The time continues, but your decisions matter. Is that correct?
The time pauses, but you're required
Oh,
to basically make a lot of these grand plans, and then you
oh,
unpause, and then you let all the action happen, then you pause again and repeat.
yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, I don't mind it. I find that mechanic is in an awful lot of games that I
Mm-hmm.
play, though it's not like prevalent. It's not center. I mean, not to bring up the dead horse that I continue to beat. And that's theme park games. But Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, you could not build rides without like with the game on pause. But 3 and
Mm-hmm.
Planet Coaster, you can. And personally, I like that ability, but it's completely not realistic. The fact that you're like a theme park that's supposed to be kind of realistic, and all of a sudden a ride appears out of nowhere that's complete. That concept is a little weird to me, but at the same time, I like having that ability because otherwise you're at least in a creative space, um, that makes sense. In a strategic space, what kind of game is it you're trying to make, or what kind of game is it you want to play? I do feel like a real time game combining with a turn based game is just a weird mishmash. I know Fallout 3 had some moments like in the fighting where that was the case, but um, yeah, it's a tough call. I really don't have an opinion on that right now, it
Mm-hmm.
turns out.
Yeah, like for me, I'd rather play something that's either or. Like I don't want to play something that's real time and turn based, or vice versa. Let me play real time, or let me play a turn based. Because it always feels like I'm kind of caught between two masters. I remember that's kind of how I felt about like Dragon Age and maybe Mass Effect. I don't remember all that much about those games, but it always like annoys me when like it just feels like two lesser systems that are being trying to be combined into one.
Yeah, there's a lot of games where I have that complaint. I wanted to call out Chad's really quick
Mm-hmm.
comment about indie developers that are overseas, um, and that is a good point because there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
To claim indie games only belong to the U.S. is a
Oh yes.
falsity. Certainly, AAA studios as well, but they generally have a presence in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that reminds me, speaking about like indie games, I forgot one of the games I've been playing. That would be Hand of Fate 2, which I've been really enjoying. Did you ever hear of the first one, Rob?
I feel like you asked me this question already, and then you reminded me, but no,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. I swear to God, you asked me that question.
Yeah, it is a game where basically everything is built around a card game that you're playing with someone. So all the events are cards on a table, all your gear represented by cards, stuff like that. And we're having a lot of fun. That's kind of been like the new Let's Play that I've been trying to do on the channel. And definitely enjoying that one. I posted my review about it earlier today. But yeah, getting back to the point there, when it comes to the ESRB like that, or even just about the world as itself, as again goes back to the challenge of standardization, because every country has its own unique rules and its own unique laws. So it becomes very tricky when you're trying to establish something for all of the game industry to follow.
Yeah, it is tricky. It's impossible. It's not game. There's too many types of games. There are too many.
Hmm. And speaking of which, there are just so many more games for me to look at here on the channel and such. So, I guess to wrap things up, I have a few questions for everyone regarding some ideas for the Patreon and goals in the future. I guess for those of you watching, would you be interested in me opening up the Saturday Night Grab Bag to my GOG collection of many classic games from the late 80s and into the 90s? Maybe have like a separate grab bag for those games. I was talking about this on Discord. Do you think like a AMA, like a Game Wisdom AMA, would be like a useful or interesting reward for people to maybe support?
Oh, I am not. I am not entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest.
Um,
Go ahead.
I was just trying to think of more ways to get like fan interaction, and bring some more notoriety into the or more variety into the Patreon, and maybe get more people to support things that way.
It is a tough call. You mostly have, and I know El Gordo, who's much more experienced with how you do things from that end. After you play, that's not going to happen, El Gordo.
Yeah, I mean, for a very long
Oh my
time.
gosh.
Then the world will end before that happens at this point.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in that same boat, and I own far fewer than you.
Hmm.
Far fewer.
I guess here's something. In terms of streaming, right now we're at about like 2 to 3 hours a night. Do you think a larger goal would be to maybe open up for like an afternoon or early evening stream as well as the late night stream as a way of having like more streaming on the channel? I just don't want to do too much because it does take a lot of time to really put on a good stream for people.
It is, and it does take a lot, but it's one of those things where, I mean, you are spread out in your media. You got
Hmm.
podcasts, you got streams, you got
Hmm.
videos that are neither, and or vidcasts or podcasts, whatever you want to call them,
Hmm.
and then you've got articles. So,
Yeah,
and just people you're calling and talking to, and you're looking at games outside of streaming. So you have a giant full
I know.
plate.
I know. I don't
So
know how much more I can stack in there.
oh, and on top of that, let's not forget you doing lectures.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, you've got, I think your particular brand is Game Wisdom. It's perfect. It's knowledge of games. And so,
Hmm.
um, I think you just got to figure out what works. And
Yeah, that's
I
always
know
the
that
tough
all
part.
the guys watching, all the guys who follow you and watch your videos will also have things to say about that. And so I say just listen to what
Hmm.
the people who watch want. That's probably the
Hmm.
best way to go. While at the same time, you have to keep up your lectures and stuff because that's a very vital part. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Or this game design advisor thing that I'll
yep,
try starting too.
yeah.
That's another thing too. Oh boy. So I think with that, let me check our time. Yeah, we are over an hour in, and I can feel my voice dying. Like Josh reading audiobooks. Exactly. That would be good. That would be the next thing. Oh, and of course the ebook. I forgot about
Yeah,
that
of course,
too.
the ebook.
And then what's next? We'll do like a little. We can do like singing as well. We can do karaoke for these shows as well. That'll be a new Patreon
Yeah.
goal. We hit it and we sing after every episode. But my voice is starting to go. I know we do have some streaming later to do. I'm still not sure what game I'm going to play tonight because right now between Hand of Fate, Space Pirates and Zombies, and Slay the Spire, that's a lot of Let's Plays for people to keep track of. So I may try and condense things down. I may actually try and focus on Hand of Fate and just try to get that up first, and then maybe go 1 to 2 games a night, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's right. I remember that suggestion.
Yeah,
That was
maybe.
a good suggestion.
Eh, I guess that could be something. I don't know how exciting it will be, like a little tour of my house, but I could put something like that up, maybe for. What do you think? Like, just put up for like VIPs who are interested, or something like that, or just anyone who donates.
Yeah, something like that. I think it's fun. It's an
Mm-hmm.
insight. 5 to 15 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
talk about your favorite pieces, and
Mm-hmm.
there you go.
All right. Yeah, maybe I'll make it like a little, maybe for like this weekend's announcement video, I'll make that and put that as a little, like a bonus treat for the end of November kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, oh, not a single
Oh, there
giant
you
one, but
go.
several. Eh, I guess I could do like maybe like a one for like each part of my house, kind of looking at all the junk and various game memorabilia I have around here. All right. But I think with that, let's wrap things up for this week. So for tomorrow's podcast, I think this is the one that I did with the jump people, which is going to be very interesting. The one with Ramen is not going up. Oh, I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his name every time I say it too. Ramin? I think that's it. If he's watching, I do apologize. My mouth is incredibly dry. I don't know if I'm coming down with something, so that is also playing into it. But that podcast won't be going up for a few weeks at least. But like I said, we'll be trying to get one for a live show in the meantime. For tonight's stream, like I said, I'm still looking around. But otherwise, thank you so put to good use all the Guitar Hero Rock Band stuff. Yeah, exactly. All the various plastic guitars I have around here. I'll see about that. But thank you so much for watching. If you're new, be sure to like and subscribe. We do these live shows, at least for right now, every Thursday night around 9:30. Again, we'll let you know once Rob finds out about his job. You said after Thanksgiving, right?
That's when it'll start. I might be able to ask before then, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, not a problem. And again, congratulations on the job, Rob.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you watching, again, if you'd like to support Game Wisdom and get access to the private Discord channel, $1 or more a month is all that's required over on patreon.com/gwbicer. But otherwise, I think that's all I have to say. For you, Rob, are you going to be doing streaming this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be doing a lot on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe less than normal. I know on Friday night, early Saturday morning, for those on the U.S., certainly on the Pacific Coast, it's probably a little more reasonable than on the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast. But the RNG gods are doing a Torchlight 2, hopefully a six-player play, which should be a lot of fun. And then, yeah, this weekend, I don't know. I know Sunday I'll be streaming normal. Saturday is up in the air at the moment.
And one of these days, we need to get you Grim Dawn, and we could do like a co-op campaign
Yes,
of
I
that.
totally need Grim Dawn. I totally need Grim Dawn. I have that $60. This was the okay. Real quick, I'll say this. For this game, for this job, I bought NBA 2K18 to play. My game crashed my computer multiple times because my computer cannot handle NBA 2K18. It is not advanced enough. So I got a refund, and now I have $60 sitting in my Steam account, waiting for the next sale. I am not going to buy anything outside of a sale anymore. I made that mistake with Planet Coaster. So, yeah, I'm ready to go. I need opinions on, should I do the Black Friday sale or should I wait till the winter sale? That's the big question I have.
Decisions.
Just
I
yes.
I think I know what everyone's going to suggest. Everyone just say, just put it all in loot boxes, Rob. That's what you should do with that
Pick a
money.
game and buy loot boxes.
All the loot boxes you can handle there.
Yeah, that'll be sad because I know it's just one of those things about loot boxes. You're just going to get so many duplicates. You're just, oh man,
You could
I
do an
spent
unboxing
$60.
video.
Oh God, oh God, just me being disappointed. Oh,
Exactly.
another jumpsuit for my character. I don't want that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we'll see what happens. See what came with the Black Sale and then Winter. We'll see what happens with that. As I know
Yeah,
it's coming soon. We're finally over here on the East Coast. It's finally starting to feel like winter, which means at long last, it's time to put away the shorts and switch to long pants once again. We'll see how long that lasts, though.
right.
All right. So I think with that, I'm trying to think. Oh, I have some very interesting critical thoughts that I've been thinking about that I'm going to be putting up in a few days. One was suggested by a fan, so I guess here's a sneak preview. It's on the topic of, are there any new genres left to create for the game industry? Or have we created everything that we can in terms of like 100% original games? This was suggested by a fan, and I think it's a very interesting topic. Because for a second, you immediately think, of course there's more games. But then when you start thinking about like all the iteration, all the standardization that's gone about, we're rarely seeing 100% original games these days.
It is tough, but then you got to define it again.
Yeah.
What is new?
Of course.
Because there's always going to be innovating forever. But
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is its own topic. And we start that now. We'll be here for another hour, and I don't know how long my voice will last. So we're going to wrap things up here. And also, I want to put out the call here as well. If you are an indie developer or just someone interested in talking about the game industry or design, I am looking for new podcast guests, either for our live or recorded shows. So please get in touch with me regarding that. There is a loot box opening simulator. I think there's one now in development, so you can definitely play that one. But again, if you're interested, please get in touch with me. I am always looking for new guests, and you can see, we can talk about just about anything related to the game industry. But again, Rob, thank you so much for being my guest host tonight, and again, or co-host, and we'll see what happens in the future. You will either be doing these on Thursday with you having a fancy new background, or we'll be doing things on the weekend, but we'll see what the future holds.
sounds good.
Alright, so again, for you folks watching this live, I'll be back hopefully in 30 minutes or so with a little game stream. We'll see how long my voice can carry. And for those of you watching this recorded, be sure to tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great night, and hopefully stay warm as we finally enter winter. Alright, see you all next time.